Interestingly, most of the early film pioneers, including D.W. Griffith, had no formal education. They were self-taught and often shared the prevailing prejudice that the cinema was a minor form of entertainment. The American film probably came of age in February 1915, when D.W. Griffith opened his first feature-length epic, The Birth of a Nation. According to Raoul Walsh, who was one of Griffith's assistants at the time, and who played the role of John Wilkes Booth, it took The Birth of a Nation to convince Americans that films were an art in their own right, and not just the illegitimate offspring of the theater. How did Griffith achieve this triumph? Essentially through his composition and orchestration of the shots. As Walsh put it, the high and low angled shots turned a good picture into a great one. One close-up was worth 1,000 words. Erich von Stroheim, also one of Griffith's assistants, said that he was the pioneer of filmdom, the first to put beauty and poetry into a cheap and tawdry sort of amusement. I've always felt that visual literacy is just as important as verbal literacy, and what the film pioneers were exploring was the medium's specific techniques. In the process, they invented a new language based on images rather than words. A visual grammar, you might say. Close-ups. Irises. Dissolves. Masking part of the screen for emphasis. Dolly shots. Tracking shots. Now these are the basic tools that directors have at their disposal to create and heighten the illusion of reality. When Lillian Gish called D.W. Griffith the father of film, she used the same analogy. She said, he gave us the grammar of filmmaking. He understood the psychic strength of the lens. Half a century later, Stanley Kubrick may have had Griffith in mind when he remarked that what is truly original in the art of filmmaking, what distinguishes it from all the other arts, may be the editing process. Watch how Griffith developed, 2 years before The Birth of a Nation, the technique of cross-cutting. He shows you two events happening at the same time and intercuts them to increase the tension of the suspense. Now, at that time, Griffith had to fight his distributors who feared that audiences would be confused by this innovation. It was in the great epics of the silent era that the illusionists learned to use special effects and visual wizardry to conjure up some of their most compelling visions. The American tradition of the great spectacle was born around 1915, when D.W. Griffith saw Cabiria, an Italian superproduction. Watched it twice in one night. It inspired him, gave him the audacity to create his masterpiece, Intolerance. Intolerance. Much has been made of its extravagant budget, real-size sets, and thousands of extras. The achievement is all the more extraordinary because Griffith worked without a script. It was all planned in his head, not on paper. But Griffith went even further. Intolerance was a daring attempt at interweaving stories and characters not from the same period, but from 4 different centuries. Freely cross-cutting from one era to another, he blended them all together in a grand symphony devoted to one idea: passionate plea for tolerance.